describing an underwater UFO as large as a football field, moving at hundreds of miles per hour underwater.
Have you met with people with direct knowledge or have direct knowledge yourself of non-human origin craft?
Yes, I personally interviewed those individuals.
Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Aliens exist and President Trump knows about it.
The United States and Israel have been in contact with a group of aliens for years.
I'd go to the moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology.
We are not all to be traced back to one blob of germplasm.
And the implant is finally removed.
There's no evidence how the object got inside the body.
Can you comment on the drones?
Our military knows where they took off from. Something strange is going on. For some reason, they don't want to tell the people.
What storm, Mr. President?
We'll find out.
What's up, people? I'm sorry, my voice. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. I'm glad you are here. Today we're gonna continue and watch The God Eaters Part 2 in the second half, because I mean my first stream was kind of bumpy. Well, let's say better to say both of them, first and the second, in terms of my camera is acting up. Now though, I do have a cable and I plugged it right into my PC, so I hope now that I'm not using the hub, it is working better. So we hope for the best, guys, and that we just can, you know, watch through smoothly without having to interrupt that thing. And it's also quite a pain to edit it afterwards, man, I'm telling you. So I would say we're gonna start with our boy Chuck. I'm sorry, I always called you Charles for some reason, man. I don't know why though. That just, you know, sometimes it happens to the best of us. So I'm glad you're here. If you didn't, subscribe to the channel if you want to follow things like that and research the world. Yeah, basically, you know, what is happening, man. So, yeah, man, we're just gonna start with the video.
Now this all ties back to a god named Kronos, whose mother was Gaia and father was Uranus, the sky. Kronos castrated his father and killed him to take his throne. So he became the god of the cosmos, time and death. Now you see in these photos of Kronos, before we get into this other stuff, notice how he's with a sickle. See, he's a sickle. He's the bringer of death. Harvest time. He's the god of the cosmos. Okay, because he killed his father Uranus, the god of the sky, and so he took over the cosmos. This is all Greek mythology, and it's important that you know this because it ties directly into Saturnalia. Do you notice something about this god? Do you notice he always has a small child with him? We take a look at the next set of pictures.
Probably nothing.
This is also Kronos. He ate his sons because he was afraid that they would kill him like he killed his own father. And so he killed and ate his kids so they could never take his throne. He's a cannibalist. You're going to see some incredible ties here. Kronos' birthday was the winter solstice because the sun is born every year. Now we're starting to get into the tough stuff. So Kronos' birthday was Christmas. Why was it Christmas or the winter solstice? Why was it the winter solstice? Because this is when the sun is rebirthed. This is when the sun is born. The sun is born on the winter solstice. Does that sound anything like a religion that you know of? That the sun is born on the winter solstice at Christmas time, at the celebration of the rising of the sun. Do you see the trickery that's happening here? Do you see the mind or the word play that's happening here, that plays with your mind? That's all intentional. Cronus, also known as Saturn, is also known as Saturn. Now, why is Cronus also known as Saturn? Rings. The rings of time. Okay? What does time do? Time devours all things. This reminds me of the riddle that Gollum presented to Bilbo when he was down in the tunnels and depths with Gollum. And Gollum said, "This thing devours all things. Birds, beasts, flowers, trees, gnaws iron, bites steel, turns hard stone to meal, slays the king, ruins the town, and beats the high mountain down."
Hey,
and the
bro.
answer is time.
He's spitting.
Time devours all things. This God represents the devouring of life.
Well,
who devours all of life? Lucifer, the black sun. And so Saturn was known as the black sun, which is time, which devours all things. Saturn Cronus was given a day of worship called Saturn's Day or Saturday. Folks, to this day, we still have a Saturday. Guess what happened on Saturday in ancient times? That was Saturn's Day. That's when everybody worshipped Kronos. Who's Kronos?
Sorry.
Kronos is Lucifer.
Dude. I swear this is something. Did you know that? Be honest. That's interesting because I did listen already, and well, not real deep research, you know, but I did listen to the topic of like the calendar and how everything is kind of like basically, how would you say, I like the days are, how would you say that, man? I'm missing the words in English at the moment, but it's like it's all for the Pope, you could say, or for the church in a way, like different priests of the Catholic Church just, you know, took days in favor for them to just change basically the calendar and how the calendar is working that we are living off today, which is totally disconnected from the natural rhythm. So I think also we would have the actual New Year would be like February or something. Maybe I'm wrong though, but at the beginning of the year, not, you know, the end of December, which is because we are still very deep in the winter. So it's not really like the nature isn't waking up. Obviously spring feels much more natural, you know, in terms of the beginning of the new year. So yeah, man, many things like that. Don't want to go into that too deep. I'm sorry, guys, but I just find that thing super interesting, man. Wow.
The black sun. Why does a hexagram represent Saturn? Well, maybe because there's a hexagon on top of Saturn. Did you know that? And how do you think these ancient people knew that there was a hexagram on top of Saturn? Did you know that this star here, this hexagram, there are 6 points, 6 triangles, and 6 sides? That's 666. That's the number of the beast. That's Satan. Did you realize this? That's what this symbology means. That's who they're worshiping. This ties you in, okay? Saturn was known and worshipped as the black sun, the god of the cosmos, the god of time, the god of death. Time devours all things. Lucifer eats all life. Lucifer, god of the earth.
What we think we understand, where we came from, what we think we're doing, the more you begin to see we've been lied to. We've been lied to by every institution. What makes you think for 1 minute that the religious institution is the only one that's never been touched? You can bet your bottom dollar that the religious institutions of this world are at the bottom of the dirt. The religious institutions in this world
probably
are put there by the same people who gave you your government, your corrupt education. The Knights Templars who set up your international banking cartels in the 12th, 13th, and 14th century are the same people that gave you educational institutions, colleges. Where do we get the word college? College comes from the collegia, the Latin Roman college of cardinals. I mean, I could go on for hours just give you examples. I mean, when you graduate, you come out with a square mortarboard, a black square mortarboard. What's all that about? Black square mortarboards.
Tell me more, bro. Please, I want to know.
It has to do with the planet Saturn. Saturn, you know, we're told that in the Old Testament that the Hebrew people, the Jewish people, were worshipers of one God. That's never been true. Not true now, and never will be true. That's just one more story that's been given to us. It's never been true. The Hebrew people were worshipers of many gods, many different divine beings. They were the most eclectic theology on the face of the earth. Next to modern day Christianity is Judaism. Eclectic meaning it has collected from all over the world concepts and ideas and put it together and called it today Judaism. Judaism today is the most eclectic religion on the face of the earth. Virtually nothing of what it teaches is true. Virtually nothing of its supposedly background is true. And consequently, the world is filled with violence, bloodshed, or disorder. Good people are dying. There are children who are starving. Our world is in trouble. And people are calling out to God for protection. People are calling out to God to help our nation, and never realizing for one moment that the divine presence in the universe not listening. Why? Because you have your own concepts of whatever you think is true, whatever you believe to be true, but you have never confronted the real truth. The real truth is that the people who are in power, who put this system together, have been in power for thousands of years. This has been going on from day one. All of the things which are going on in this world today, from 9/11, all of the wars in the Middle East, all of the incredible bloodshed that's being spilled all over the earth, can be traced back to, and you might want to remember what I'm saying here, because I'm sure you're not going to make the connection when I first tell you, but I'm going to try to explain it to you. The things which are happening today, the people who are in power in this country, the great generals from around the world who are planning wars and violence and bloodshed, all of this stuff can be traced back to the planet Saturn. Saturn is a very, very pivotal, important concept.
Dude, this is so... Yeah, I remember hearing from David Icke, basically, quite early already. But I never dug into that thing too deep, to be honest. I don't know why though. Never did. But I'm glad we are here now. So because yeah, man, this is great stuff. Great stuff.
In theology and religion, and most people have never been told any of this and have no knowledge of it at all. But the planet Saturn is very important in world affairs, in theology. In the Islamic belief, the holy city of Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia, Mecca has a Masonic circle, and within the Masonic circle is a square.
Is it Masonic?
Because you got to do everything on the square, remember. You have a town square, you have New York Square, you have Vatican Square, you have Red Square, you have all kinds of squares. Why? Because this is Masonic. And it goes all the way back into the ancient world, the terms and symbols. Again, the planet is called the Black Square. It's called the Dark Sun, the Black Sun. This is what the Nazis and the SS and the Gestapo wore black. That's why priests wear black. That's why judges wear black robes. Why do you think a judge wears a black robe? He wears a black robe because when you used to graduate from university, you wear a black robe. Why black robes? Darth Vader wears a black robe. What the hell does a black robe have to do with anything? The judges wear black robes. You know, Supreme Court judges wear black robes. Black robes represent the priesthood of the planet Saturn, the Saturnalian Brotherhood. All you need to do is study Nazism, and you will begin to see that the powers behind the Nazi Party, the Thule Society, the Germanian Order, were all members of something called the Saturnalian Brotherhood, the Brotherhood of Saturn.
What?
Saturn was the god of darkness, chaos, and destruction. He teaches you a lesson. He will take your life if you don't listen to him. So consequently, Saturn was very, very important in the ancient world. Thank you. Saturn's name, incidentally, in the old Phoenician ancient Canaanite religion in the Middle East, the old Phoenician Canaanite worship of the planet Saturn was the most important god of all the ancient world, was the planet Saturn, and his symbol, long before the Hebrews were ever in Canaan, the symbol in Canaan for the planet Saturn was a six-pointed star. Today we call that star the Star of David. There was no Star of David. It's the Star of Saturn. All of the Jewish reference books, all the Encyclopedia Judaica, you go to the synagogue, go up into Mulholland Drive, up to the Jewish University and spend 3 weeks there and look up Saturn. You'll find out that 98% of all Judaism is a worship of the planet Saturn. Better wake up and understand where this stuff comes from. Because if there is a God in heaven, if there is a divine presence in the universe that demands righteousness and justice, then you're going to have to rethink what we believe and where we're going and what the world is all about, because for the last 2,000 years we haven't done too well.
True, bro.
Saturn was referred to as El. E-L. El was the god Saturn in the old Phoenician Canaanite system. And consequently, anyone that promoted the worship of El is where we get the word elder. You become an elder because you were worshiping El. And when you worship El and become an elder, then how did you get to be an elder? You got elected. So therefore we have elections. Now that you have been elected to be an elder, now you are one of the elites. Why? Because now you have moved up, like in an elevator. You are now moved up in society. Consequently, it's all money. It's all manipulation and exploitation coming out of Phoenicia, Canaan. It goes back to the old Sumerian, Babylonian systems of words and terms and symbols and emblems that have been used to manipulate the whole human race.
Oh my goodness,
because
bro.
our masters don't give a damn about you or your family or your destiny with God. All they care about is what they have always cared about, and that's controlling the whole damn world.
So there's the black sun on the left. There's the hexagram. There's the hexagon on top of Saturn. And then we have Cronus. What I'm emphasizing here, what I'm trying to show you is, these are all the same thing. They all represent Lucifer. They are all symbols for and of Lucifer. That's why they use them. That's why they use this symbology in their worship. It's because they represent, these symbols represent a deeper underlying knowledge. Now look where I found the black sun. I did a search for the black sun, which means Lucifer and Satan. Look where I found it here in the Hall of SS Generals in, I think that's Wewelsburg Castle, Germany. Look, it's right there on the floor. It's in the Azov Battalion patch, their rank. And look, they're holding a flag. There's the black sun, the symbol of Nazism there in the middle. The communism is Satanism. Get it? These are not groups, organizations of people that have your best interest in mind, that have the human interest in mind. They are not interested in your betterment.
Probably
They're interested
not.
in controlling you. They're interested in controlling the power, the planet,
Old man.
having all the power. That's why these are militant groups. They're not there to have a dialogue with you. They're there for you to do as you're told, and if you don't do as you're told, you're either killed or imprisoned. Period. You see, these are anti-human groups. This is an anti-human religion. That's why it centers on cannibalism. It is anti-human. This mafia, this is their religion. The Khazarian Mafia's religion is Saturnalia, is ancient Saturn worship, worship of the black sun. This is where it gets even heavier. Saturn equals Satan equals the black cube. Satan and the black cube of Saturn. One of the most mysterious symbols in our culture today is the black cube of Saturn. Saturn is not only the hexagram, it is also the cube. Here's why. The black cube is a representation of the planet's north pole, meaning Saturn's north pole, which forms a perfect hexagon with the diameter of each of its 6 sides being very close to the projected diameter of the Earth. The cube is a 3-dimensional representation of the 2-dimensional hexagonal north pole of Saturn. That's why they're related. Look here, from Fritz Springmeier. This is the gentleman that wrote that book, The Illuminati, The Blood of the Illuminati, or that book that talked about the Illuminati. This is the same guy, former FBI, CIA. Saturn is an important key to understanding the long heritage this conspiracy has back to antiquity. The city of Rome was originally known as Saturnia, or City of Saturn. The Roman Catholic Church retains much of the Saturn worship in its ritual. Who gave us the Bible? The Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church retains much of the Saturn worship in its ritual. Human sacrifice? Is there a human sacrifice at the center of Western religion? Saturn also relates to Lucifer. In various occult dictionaries, Saturn is associated with evil. Look where else there are black cubes. Australia, Denmark, Manhattan, Santa Ana. Oh, and look, guess what also is a black cube? The Kaaba. That's in Mecca. And look at the rings that form around the Kaaba. These folks don't even realize who they're worshiping. That cube literally represents Satan. The cube, when flattened out, becomes a Christian cross. In Judaism, the 6-pointed Star of David represents Satan and originates from Saturn. Orthodox Jews wear the black cube of Saturn on their forehead. Like
One thing. I wonder, do you know about black goo, guys? So black goo is super interesting as well, man. It's supposed to be this, oil that is running through the world also. And some people claim I think the Nazis also kind of did find it back in the days somewhere in a comet or something that landed on Earth. And that this oil is basically some kind of, like an entity. It's conscious, so it has consciousness, and they say it interacts with you when you are close to it or you're, touching it, stuff like that. So I find it quite hard to get like proper research and or proper sources for this whole thing. It's always like very, very vague, it's like, yeah, there are some guys that found something back then, but it's like, I don't see any papers. I didn't see anything. I think they even say there's like a university where they are like scientists exploring that thing, basically working with it. I don't know, man. Crazy stuff. But it kind of reminds me to it because he was also talking about it in terms of the cube. And black goo is also this black oil, so yeah, man, it is interesting.
The third eye and call it tefillin. I don't know how to pronounce that. Look how the cube, when you unfold it, it forms a perfect cross. And then we see here, look what's on this dude's head. The black cube. And what does this tell you? Satan is Saturn, is represented in the hexagram, is in the black sun, is the black cube, is the cross. The black cube in Mecca in the occult is called the hypercube. It represents mind control. That's why the TV is black and cube shaped. The graduation hat is a black cube, etc. It's all mind control. When Muslims walk around the Kaaba in rings, it is a representation of Saturn's rings. Saturn equals Satanism. That is what you're giving your energy to. Same with Christianity. The cross, when folded up, folds into a cube. More mind control. Same with all the other religions, all based in Satanism and created by the dark occult. I'll never forget when I heard Mark Passio. When I heard Mark Passio claim, I'll never forget this, when he claimed that all of Western religion was invented by the Order of the Black Snake. And I remember
Order of the Black Snake. Did you ever hear of that? The Order of the Black Snake? That sounds interesting. But also what he was saying, man, this is super mind-blowing, man. Like, in a way, I gotta be honest, it is kind of hard to grasp for me. in a way, you know, that this is really the case. Not that I don't want to believe, or not that I'm not believing it, but in a way, you know, it can seem a bit far-fetched in a way, you know, like, yeah, all right, Saturn, and then you have Satan, and then you have the rings, and, you know, it's the cube and the hexagon and the black sun is kind of, could be. But probably because it's so abstract for us, that it's, yeah, just very hard to believe, man. That's crazy.
There's no way. There's no way that's true. And what you begin to find out when you begin to study this stuff, and you begin to hear guys like, who is it, Jordan Maxwell, and you begin to hear the information they have to tell you. Speaking of which, I'll just go to the next slide. You begin to understand that you've been deceived. You've been deceived because this group claimed God, and they claimed they had exclusive access to God, and you had to follow their symbols and rituals to know this God. That's mind control. And it was one of the most difficult characteristics of my life I've ever had to accept, and that is that I have been captured. I've been captured with mind control. And I've been captured with these symbols. I've been captured with these meanings and these traditions and these edicts that, you know, when you're born, you're this way, and you have to do these things to find resolution, and you're apart from God, and you're separated, and all this kind of stuff. Was coming to realize that all of these things were just simply means to control me and keep me from thinking for myself and keep me from being a free man. And that's exactly what the Khazarian Mafia wants. And it's the reason why I show you this stuff, is so that not only it conquers your fear, but it educates you, and it also tells you this is why it's the way that it is. This is why there's a 6-pointed star. It has nothing to do with David. It has everything to do with Satanism. It's a sign of the 666. And people just don't know this. They just simply, they've been brainwashed with other ideas to cover over what's actually happening. And again, this goes back to that same theme that I talked about at the beginning of the essay. This group hides in abject secrecy. They do not want to be known, and so they bury themselves in symbolism and then tell you false meanings of those symbols, give you false ideas about yourself in your head, so you'll not only never know anything about yourself or the world, but you'll never catch them. And when I come to you on a day like today and I show this kind of stuff to you, it's so outlandish to many of you that you're like, there's no way. There's no way. This guy's nuts.
That's exactly what I was talking about, man. That it's so hard to believe. And I'm really open-minded, you know. And I'm never at the point where I'm like, this is the truth, so now I stop being critical. So it's always like that I have the tendency towards something. So I keep everything as possible in my mind, you know. But this is like, wow. Also possible, definitely. It's just very abstract, man. That's crazy. But it seems reasonable, you know. So I'm digging it, man. Gotta say.
And that is black magic defined. Continuing on from the cult of Saturn, notice on our little handy dandy map here from our friend Dylan Monroe. Look how we have the Knights Templar there, right below Rome, and Baphomet. Did you know that the Knights Templar secretly worshipped Baphomet? Who's Baphomet, Chuck? This is Baphomet. There is all kinds of symbolism in this figure. First of all, it's a goat. That's an ancient, the goat is an ancient Egyptian god, Mendes, who actually is a representation of what? A black snake. And speaking of snakes, look at the snakes on its belly, the Baphomet's belly. Look at the scales on the belly and around.
Which is another rabbit hole, because he's talking about the snakes, that the snakes are actually satanic, because this also represents the Kundalini energy, the snake that is going up the spine. So some people even say that this Kundalini energy is actually a satanic thing, which is another rabbit hole, man. That's crazy. So I find that very, very interesting. So I have no real opinion about it, because I mean, it's super spread throughout the world now, you know, mainly Asia, or like India, of course. Yeah, man, just imagine that it is, but it's so implemented even in Hinduism, Buddhism, you know, so that's super interesting.
Around the snakes. Look at the scales below the wings.
Sorry for the snacking, guys, man. I didn't eat anything, so super hungry. I'm sorry.
Or along the wing edges. Okay, this is signifying the black snake. And then we notice that the snakes are crossing 3 times, once at their tail, once in the middle, and then once at the head. And the heads are what? They're looking at that circle at the top, which is the earth. Interestingly, look at this here. Here you see the Pope. Isn't it interesting? He has those same snakes. And they cross 3 times, and the snakes represent, obviously, Leviathan. And they are watching over that circle, which is the earth. And then look what's at the top of the scepter of the Pope, which is a cross. What does that say? The church rules the world. The church sits over the world as Lucifer watches it. That's what that scepter is saying to you. This represents the crossing of the 3 snakes, represents the lower 3 chakra. These are lower 3 chakra people. In other words, they have no heart. They have no compassion. They have no empathy. They are not concerned with the upper levels of the chakra, the spiritual experience. They are concerned with the mortal experience.
This makes very much sense, because I'm thinking a lot about the fact that like all these evil happenings, you know, all this child violence and like rape and, you know, a lot of bad stuff that is going on, cannot be even like a human, you know? When you do stuff like this, how can you be a human with a heart, bro? I swear, I don't get it. So I always found myself thinking, they have to be different, you know? Interesting.
That's why blood, the carrier of life, the giver of life, is their obsession. They are obsessed with the earth. They are obsessed with earth calendars, earth characteristics, the cosmos. This is why all of Christianity comes out of astrotheology, a cosmic idea of the universe. And these people see themselves as the ruler of the cosmos. That's because Satan is the ruler of the earth, the ruler of the material world, the ruler of the bottom 3 chakra. The bottom 3 chakra is the first chakra is just the gripping to life. It's a grim avidity, which is the holding to life for the sake of life itself, for no other reason but to be alive. That's the bottom chakra. And then the next one up is the sexual chakra. This is the projection of, this is the procreation. This is continuing your life and bloodline through the blood, through the exchange of the fluids of the body. This is all material. This is all matter. And then finally, projection, the power projection, which is the solar plexus, is the final place at the top. This is the projecting of your will, the projecting of your power onto the planet, onto others. This is the chakras that the lion lives by. The gripping to life, the spreading of his genetic, and then the killing and taking of life, power projection. And that's the lion's concern. The lion's concern is not home life. The lion's concern is not the betterment of other groups and other lions. The lion is concerned about himself. He's self-consumed. And so there's no empathy that's going to come out of that lion. There's not going to be any compassion that comes out of that lion. That lion is a predator. That is why these people use that symbology, is they see themselves as predator. They see Satan as a predator, a roaring lion that's devouring. This is what that represents. And of course, it's sitting on the earth. That's a globe that it's sitting upon. And then notice that it's androgyne. It's both male and female, and it is a beast. It is both hooves as well as a human torso. So this idea of androgyne, this idea of smearing the sexes and smearing the gender, these people love that idea. These people, that's why they prey on the kids. And there's this whole gender movement that's happening. It's because the Khazarian Mafia is trying to capitalize on this androgyne obsession that they associate with Lucifer. It has nothing to do with the betterment of people's psychology. It has nothing to do with affirming people's drives and will. It has nothing at all to do with that. It is all entirely controlled. This is why those in Hollywood that sell their soul to Satan, when they have children, they're given the choice. They either raise their children as the opposite sex to which they were born, or they sacrifice one of them. So that's
what? Say what? Damn, that's something. I did hear about that, but I've seen accounts on X, you know, posting basically. I felt like they were posting pictures of literally every celebrity out there, and they were just saying, "Do you see her Adam's apple? This has to be a guy. This has to be a guy. This has to be a girl." So it's like, but like everywhere, like with everyone, you know. So I was like, at some point, like, bro, come on, man. I cannot imagine this, that literally everyone, you know, is like a transgender or something. So kind of hard to believe, asking me. But, well, who knows, right? Could be. We never know, probably. Michelle or Michael Obama is funny, though. There's some funny dancing videos, you know? Probably, you know.
Choice. If you want to stay in the group and not die yourself, all your kids, you either raise them all and the opposite sex to what they're born as, or you're going to sacrifice one of them. And that's the deal. These people, they're not, in other words, they're not doing this to affirm the psychology of the child. They're predators. They're preying on the family. They're preying on these groups that they control. And so we see that in this Baphomet, in this representation of the evil that they worship. The head itself, you can see, forms a star. The goatee forms the bottom of the pentagram, then the two ears form the sides, and the two horns form the top. And then that torch there is the light of wisdom. That's essentially the black sun. And it is through the balancing of dualism that one controls the mortal world. And so the two horns there at the top represent good and evil. Just like the hands, the two fingers, as above, so below, this is pointing towards dualism. The dualistic characteristic that is the mortal life. They are celebrating that. They are celebrating the mortal life. They are not concerned with transcendence. They are not concerned with orienting to the heart and orienting to the spiritual sense of loving one another. They have absolutely no desire or concern for that. Their concern is usurpation, taking. I take the innocence of those that I sacrifice. I take the innocence of those that I mind control, and I control them. This is what fulfills them. This is what you need to understand. When you don't have a heart, you get fulfillment through control. When you don't center on compassion, you get fulfillment through the taking of life. This is what fulfills you. What gives you energy and emotion and passion is the taking of a free individual's life. This figure is a celebration of that evil. And by knowing this, not only are you not afraid of it, but you understand why it looks like that. That's why it looks like that. If you look here on the left, it says solve and coagula. Distillation. It is through distillation that one understands the world. And through how do I resolve a problem? Let's say I'm trying to separate the alcohol from the water. These are alchemical metaphors I'm talking about here. So if I'm trying to separate the alcohol from the water, the spirit from the matter, I would solve or dissolve it by boiling it, and then
My boy was switching shirts, bro. Keep going though.
Boil out the alcohol, and then I coagulate it. I recondense it back into liquid and collect the extract. And what I've done in that process is I have purified this. And that is what this solvent coagula is claiming. And they're claiming by aligning to these lower 3 chakras, you purify your life to that of the animal who does not have any consciousness, who does not have anything but instinct. And you are acting on the usurping and the devouring consumption that rules the animal. And this is distillating. This image here is attempting to distillate out of the individual their compassion, so that all that's left is their animal instinct, so that they're a killer. These are alchemical principles that this group is borrowing, is taking, is using for themselves as a representation for this evil. So through the human sacrifice, I purify. Through sacrificing the child, through sacrificing the human being, I purify my mortal self, my mortal being. My spiritual sense is distillated through the sacrifice. See, this stuff relates to you because you can understand this stuff, because most of the West has understood themselves through the distillation of sin. Distilling this out of one's life through the giving of oneself to this religious system, this belief system. One distillates their idea of themselves through the system, and then they are purified after and through the sacrifice. That's where this idea comes from, folks. It comes straight out of Satanism. It comes straight out of the idea that someone else must die in order for you to be purified. That is a satanic principle.
Exactly. And this is also why I was talking about, because I had a comment on my last video about this fraternity ritual. And I was talking about Epstein, mostly joking though. But I do find that this is like the beginning of it, like the soft way, you know, quite harmless. So no one gets injured really bad. But it's the same weird principle that I feel like you would not really come up with, like, on your own. At least not me, you know, thinking about I have to make someone suffer to make him join the club or be someone, you know. To gain something, you have to suffer, you have to go through pain, or you have to die, you know. So this is all this weird principle I see, and it's just a pattern, man. It is going on. And this is where it's kind of starting, you know, in a harmless way. And sometimes actually not that harmless, as we can say, because many people died, you know, because people were doing bad stuff. Just put it that way. So yeah, man, I find that is super legit. And something to keep in mind. Where do we see the patterns, man? It's all about patterns. I swear.
And that has been integrated directly into Christianity, into all the Western religions. You see?
I see.
This is, what you're finding out now is how deeply you have been lied to about the world, the cosmos, yourself, God, who runs the world, who owns the world and rules the world. You've been totally, completely deceived. And studying this group will teach you that, because that's their MO. Their method of operation is deceit. The Rothschilds, as the front men for the KM, infiltrate and hijack British banking and then hijack the whole nation of England. Bauer Rothschild had 5 sons who infiltrated and took over European banking and the City of London's central banking system through various crafty covert operations, including a false report of Napoleon winning against the British when he actually lost. This allowed the Rothschilds to use fraud.
Give me 1 second, guys. Just gotta get my pullover. get it, bro. So, a bit more warm and a bit more cozy, you know? You know?
And deception to steal the wealth of English nobility and the landed gentry, people of high societal means, nobility, and privilege, who had made business investments with the City of London banking institutions.
Today I'm going to show you the family tree of the Rothschild family, one of the wealthiest families in world history, as well as one of the most controversial. First of all, the name Rothschild comes from the German.
For me as a German, bro, the way he's like, Rothschild. Bruh. Gotta rewind that one quick.
For red shield. Child comes controversial. First of all, the name Rothschild comes.
Bro, Alter Falter. Das ist mein Ding, sag ich dir, Alter. Boah. Rothschild. Alright, bro. Continue. I'm sorry. But this was hilarious.
From the German for red shield. It's a reference to the fact that the family originally used a red shield as an identifying mark on their house. Their story begins in Germany with this individual here, Meyer Amschel Rothschild, who was initially a dealer in rare coins and an apprentice banker. However, things really took off for him because of a special relationship he had with a German prince, William IX of Hesse-Kassel. That prince appointed Meyer to be his court Jew. A court Jew was actually an official position in those days. Because Christians were prohibited from certain types of money lending, nobles would often hire a Jew to fulfill this role. So Meyer ended up managing the money for one of the richest princes in Europe, and by doing so, he himself became very rich as well. Eventually, he started managing money for other princes and even entire governments. By this point, he had several adult sons. So what he did was he created a Rothschild bank and he sent each of his 5 sons to a different capital in Europe to run a branch there. His eldest son, Amschel, ran the original branch in Frankfurt, and then his son Solomon was sent to Vienna, Nathan to London, Karl to Naples, and James to Paris. The family then developed a network of agents that allowed for safe and speedy transfer of gold across the continent, as well as for ease of communication between the various branches. This made all 5 branches extremely successful. However, the London branch was perhaps the most successful of all.
This is super. Wow. What a family. I mean, that's quite a way to, you know, create your family or lead the family. The question is, how did they manage to make the sons basically just do what they want, you know? And that's where the satanic ritual abuse comes into play. How do you, how are you able to program, to condition a human? And to do that, you have to break him very, very early. And that's a very, very sad and, yeah, quite horrifying thing on this world. But it's existing, so it is how it is, man. But yeah, so you can imagine what is going on inside of that family. That's what I think may be the thing going on. Could be. We never know.
During the Napoleonic Wars, Nathan almost single-handedly financed the entire British war effort and took care of paying British troops and their allies across the continent. So by the 1820s, the Rothschilds were the wealthiest family in Europe, and they continued to be hugely influential within the world of international finance throughout the 19th century. The five brothers were given the title of Baron by the Emperor of Austria, which is why you often see the German von or a French de before their last name. Nathan, being based outside of the continent, was one of the few that did not use the title. So let's look at the third generation Rothschilds. Almost all of the males in the third generation married one of their female first cousins. This ensured that the dynasty's wealth stayed within the family. So, for example,
I'm getting the Game of Thrones vibes, bro. The Lannisters.
Anselm, the firstborn son of Solomon, married his cousin Charlotte, the daughter of Nathan. He's shown in yellow because he's from the Austrian branch, and she's shown in red because she's a member of the British branch. Likewise, Lionel, the firstborn son of Nathan, married his cousin, also named Charlotte, but she was a daughter of Karl from the Italian branch.
This is Jacob Rothschild on the right and Marina Abramovic on the left.
Marina Abramovic, she's one weird woman, man. There are rumors that Lady Gaga might be connected to her, let's say. In which way? I don't know. But she's super weird, man. Does some crazy artwork, you can say. If you want to call it artwork, right? But I think you know what I'm talking about. Might be blood involved. Smearing on the walls. Weird things. Well, who knows?
And the reason why I'm showing you this is from a couple of years ago at an event that they attended. And the reason I'm showing you this is for you to see that they really are Satanists, but they come across, look, he's just standing with his hands behind his back. There's nothing to worry about. But look what's behind them. That's some kind of painting. We're going to study that in a minute. This is Marina here. She's also a practicing Satanist. Notice this picture on the left here with the child. Notice also, this is a woman who's never had any plastic surgery, so she claims, and she's in her 70s. Does that look like a person who's in their 60s and 70s in these pictures? Did you know that adrenochrome de-ages you? Did you know that? Did you know that it makes the skin tighter and thicker? Keeps your hair color the same color. It will never gray. If you're consistently drinking adrenochrome, you will de-age. You won't age. This is one of the secrets in Hollywood of how all of the men and women don't age and stay looking so young. It's because they have a consistent diet of adrenochrome.
Again, I want more credible research to that thing. I did look up in the whole adrenochrome thing quite a bit, but I did not come over anything crazy convincing. You know what I mean? If you have something, please, like an article, a book, a guy that has research about the adrenochrome thing, whether you have actually people like cases, it's like you always see it mentioned being, yeah, you can see AD and Google Chrome, you know, Chrome, and but it's super hard, man, to find something credible that is convincing and showing me, yeah, dude, that is actually the real thing. Yeah, let me know, guys.
Children's blood. What is the painting that they are standing in front of? This is a painting called Satan Summoning His Legions. Now, why do you think at a special gala public event they would want to be pictured right in front of Satan summoning his legions? I think that's coincidence. You notice I noticed something about this painting here on the left. Do you notice something above Satan's head there? Look at the dude on the right, how he's looking up at it. Here's a closer shot. That looks like a mouth to me. And 2 eyes. See the red? That looks like the mouth of Satan, does it not? Look here. Look how much it looks like the Papal Hall at the Vatican, which looks like a snake mouth. Here's a bigger picture of it. Do you see the little white light dots going into the mouth? Those look like souls flowing into the mouth of Satan. Here we have
I think I'm blind right now, bro. Where do you see that? Dude, I don't see it. I really try. Don't know what he exactly means. Damn. Or maybe it doesn't mean this. Maybe. Ah, I think now I see it. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
the Papal Hall. You don't believe me? Here it is occupied. That is literally the Papal Hall at the Vatican in Rome. Does that look like a snake mouth to you? Do those look like scales on the ceiling and on the walls? Here's a viper mouth. Interesting. Here's the outside of the building. Here's a snake. Do those look similar to you? Here's a close-up. Look at how the stained glass forms an eye. Look at the scales on top and how it slopes like a snakehead slopes. Has the brow over the eye. Look how its tile on the outside look like scales. These people are mocking you, folks. They're mocking you with their architecture. They're putting who? The entire congregation into the mouth of the snake. The Rothschilds set up a private fiat banking system that specialized in making counterfeit money from nothing, charging pernicious usury, illegal taxes for the British people, using what should have been their own money. This was the black art of Babylonian money magic. They claimed to insiders that such technology and secret money power was provided to them by Lucifer, Baphomet, because of their frequent child bleeding out and ritual sacrifices to him. And we already looked at the Baphomet symbolism. We know that that is Satan. Once they had infiltrated and hijacked the British banking system, they interbred prima nocte with the British royals. We talked about that earlier, remember, where they bred with the local kingdoms there in the 1500s. And they hijacked the royalty systems, the nobility systems that were in place with their own seed.
Oopsie.
Prima nocte.
Well.
Some experts believe that the Rothschilds genocided the royal family members by staging secretly managed illicit and adulterous breedings with their own Khazarian men in order to replace the royals with their own pretenders to the throne, a practice known as prima nocte, and we all remember the scene in Braveheart when that happened. In the 1600s, the KM murdered the British royals and substitute their own fakes. In the 1700s, they murder the French royals. Right before World War I, they murder Austrian Archduke Ferdinand to start World War I. In 1917, they assembled their KM army, the Bolsheviks, and infiltrate and hijack Russia, murder the Tsar and his family in cold blood. They bayonet his favorite daughter through the chest and steal all the Russian gold, silver, and art treasures. Right before World War II, they murder the Austrian and German royals. They then rid of the Chinese royals and disempower the Japanese ruler. Realize who you are dealing with in reading these words, folks. They are not kidding around. They are not kidding around. This isn't a joke. They aren't faking it. This is real. This is real. And learning this stuff is how you're going to be able to fight it. This is how you save yourself, by learning this stuff. The Khazarian Mafia's intense hatred of anyone who professed faith in any god but their god Baal has motivated them to murder kings and royalty and make sure they can never rule. They have done the same with American presidents, running sophisticated, covert operations to disempower them. Remember what I was saying about Reagan? That's what they did. If that doesn't work, the KM assassinates them like they did to McKinley, Lincoln, and JFK. Remember the Clinton body bags? These are the people that are found having committed suicide by shooting themselves in the head twice and hanging themselves. But they committed suicide. Okay. The KM wished to eliminate any strong rulers or elected officials who dared to resist their Babylonian money magic and their covert power gained from their deployment of their human compromise network. The Rothschilds expand their network to create international narcotics trafficking on behalf of the KM. This is now where we're going to get into the Opium Wars. The Rothschilds covertly...
Oh yeah, the Opium Wars.
...ran the British Empire. Read that? They covertly ran the British Empire. In other words, they are running the empire.
All right.
Just past... Look at our map here. Look at the map. There. Just past the Reformed Age, right there, 1760, Bank of England. Remember we read about that? They're running the show. They are entirely running the show by about 1750. They're running the whole thing. They own all the money, and they have regicided all of English nobility. They are running the show. Period. The Rothschilds covertly ran the British Empire and crafted an evil plan to recover the vast amounts of gold and silver the British had been paying to China for its high-quality silk and spices that were unavailable anywhere else. You see, they're still hustling in the silk and spice stuff. They
still hustling, bro. But yeah, I guess he's right. They're still doing it.
The East India Company was their cover for the beginning of the Opium War. The Rothschilds, through their international spy network, had heard of Turkish opium. There's the spy network. Okay, remember how I said that they had spy networks and that's what saved them from being destroyed by Russia? Here they've got spy networks all over the place, and they have figured out that Turkish opium had habit-forming characteristics. It's opium. Highly addictive pleasure drug. They deployed a covert operation to buy Turkish opium and sell it in China. This was all done through the East India Trade Company, infecting millions with a bad opium habit that brought back gold and silver into the Rothschild coffers, but not to the British people. And this is the beginning of the drug wars. What they were doing, they were harvesting, generating, sourcing opium. They were then using the East India Company to haul that stuff over to China illegally, and then they sold it for gold and silver in China, and they were bankrupting China, so China went to war with them. To give you an idea how easy opium is to manufacture, I did a little chart here. I'll read this first. The opium addictions created by Rothschild opium sales to China harmed China so badly that China went to war on 2 occasions to stop it. These wars were known as the Boxer Rebellions or the Opium Wars. The money the Rothschilds gained from the sale of opium was so vast that they became even more addicted to the easy money than the opiate addicts were to the opium. Opium is made from poppy seeds, the poppy plant. The California's national flower or state flower is the poppy. What happens is in the fall or late summer, the poppy forms a pod of seeds. Those are on the bottom left, and then you scrape the pod, which forms a latex, which causes a latex-like goo to ooze out of the pod, and it dries overnight and oxidizes. That's why it turns brown. It goes from white to brown. That's oxidation. And then here you see the knife they use to scrape off that opium. That's it. That's it. You simply take the scrapings, you dry them, grind them into powder. That's opium. Think of how easy and cheap it would be to grow this. I mean, poppy's an annual. You can grow poppy. It's so easy to grow poppy. And so this was an easy way. My point here is an easy way to make gobs of money. Gobs of money. Because you can sell that opium for enormous sums, and you're making it from growing basically annual weeds. So they built an empire on this. The Rothschilds did, and it was so powerful that they eventually went to war. If we look at the map here, I've got the Opium Wars listed out. Right there in AD 1830, addict China with Turkish opium via the East India Company, and they drained China of precious metals.
Quick interruption, because the opioid wars are really bad. Especially the US, man. South America as well. I mean, everywhere where it's about drug wars or about drugs and there's war is a bad thing. But I feel like especially in South America, it's crazy. Now that they deleted Elemencho, the guy of the CJNG is it's going crazy. They're going nuts right now in Mexico. Crazy times, man. It's all about the money.
Shortly thereafter, 1839, so it's 10 years later, all the way up until 1860, 2 Opium Wars, and China loses both to Europe and France. They lost them both. They used that money to then begin the Civil War and to take over America. And that is the Civil War was funded from opium sales coming out of the Queen in England. And this here I have in red here, I've got it noted. In Russia intervened. And I actually have the evidence. I found it for you guys. I found the evidence of Russia intervening. It's a bit ahead of the lecture, but here's the slide. This is how they intervene in the American Revolutionary War on the left from 1775 to 1783, and then the American Civil War in 1861 and 1865, how Russia intervened, saved our bohinies, and at the same time even created even more hatred with the Khazarian Mafia. This is why you have heard the narrative from Hillary from the very beginning. Russia, Russia, Russia. Russia is bad. Hate Russia. Destroy Russia. Russia is evil. That's why you're hearing that. That's why you're hearing that. Straight out of the Khazarian Mafia. The Rothschilds were the funding source behind the establishment of the American colonies by incorporating the Hudson Bay Company and other trading companies to exploit the New World of the Americas. It was the Rothschilds who ordered the mass extermination and genocide of the indigenous people of North America to allow for exploitation of the vast natural resources of the continent. The first biological weapons were leprosy, smallpox, and plague. Isn't it interesting that they still use disease as a means of control? I've shown some pictures here of the diseases that they spread intentionally.
Looks
to
pretty
kill
bad.
Off the Native Americans. There was something like...
Looks pretty horrible.
The span of about 10 years at the end of the 1800s, 19th century, over 30 million Native Americans were killed, mostly through smallpox, leprosy, and plague spread by the KM. The Rothschilds start the international slave trade, an enterprise that viewed these kidnapped humans as mere animals, a view that the Khazarians would impose on all the people of the world who were not part of their evil circle, which some called the old black nobility, the old religion. What brought back slavery? Sugar. Sugar, the demand for sugar. Sugar's a drug. The same thing that caused the Opium Wars is the same thing that brought back slavery. Drugs. Drugs. Sugar is a highly addictive drug. And it was the craving and demand of all the Western, all of Europe, all the West. It was their demand for sugar that brought back slavery. Terence McKenna did a great lecture on it. The Rothschilds' next big project was to start the worldwide...
I gotta have to look that up, man. Probably something for the next or another live stream. Good idea, good idea. McKenna on sugar and slavery. Didn't hear about that connection, to be honest. So that should be an interesting one. So again, in case you didn't, hit the subscribe button so you're not missing on that live stream. And yeah, man, say hello if you're here in the comments or in the chat, man. I appreciate it a lot. Thanks for being here, man. So let's continue.
Slave trade, buying slaves from crooked tribal chiefs in Africa who worked with them to kidnap members of competing tribes for sale as slaves. The Rothschild slave traders then took these kidnapped slaves on their ships in cramped cells to America and the Caribbean, where they were sold. Many died at sea due to bad conditions. The Rothschild bankers learned early on that war was a great way to double their money in a short time by lending money to both warring sides. You see how it works? But in order to be guaranteed collections, they had to get taxation laws passed, which could be used to force payment. So you got to corrupt the people in charge, the politicians and the generals, and that's who you see, the Hidden Hand Club. These groups work in clubs, and one of the clubs that we are familiar with is the Hidden Hand Club.
Yeah, boy.
I found a whole bunch of pictures of people that were in the Civil War and people that had huge influence on society, and look how many, look, all of them are a part of the Hidden Hand. The Hidden Hand means you're a part of the mafia. There's also other clubs. The Black Eye Club, you've seen that before. There's argument as to what causes that, and I'm not going to dive into that. I'm just going to show you that they're all a part of the Black Eye Club. There's the Red Shoe Club. The Red Shoe, what this is, and most people don't know this, or a lot of people don't know, when these gentlemen here that you see in the picture performed the sacrifice that was necessary for them to be a part of the group, you must sacrifice a child to be in these clubs. That child's skin is then made into leather, and then that is made into the shoes that they wear. So they wear the skin of the child that they raped, tortured, and murdered to become a part of the club. And that is what you see in this picture. These gentlemen are mocking you.
That's another interesting thing. I did some research as well, man, into the Red Shoe Club thing. Yeah, kind of have to dig, oh my goodness, you have to dig deep into the thing again to find credible sources. I find a lot of vague shit that is not really, not certain that it's true. To me, at least. Again, there, if you have something, write it to me, man. Leave it in comments. Let me know.
They're mocking us and they're laughing at us. Look, it's right in front of you. Look here, the Pope also is in the Red Shoe Club. He wears red shoes. They also are made from children's skin. You don't have to believe it, that's fine. But that's what the tradition is. That's what the red shoe tradition is. And it's to show that we walk on you. That's what they're saying. We walk on you, we control you. They love to put it right in your face. Just like the papal hall and its snake mouth, they love to put it right in your face, put you in the symbol. They are eating you and you are in the symbol, and they stand there and laugh at you because you don't know that you're participating in their con by being complicit with them. The Rothschild private fiat counterfeit banksters plot eternal revenge against the American colonists in Russia who assisted them for losing the Revolutionary War. When the Rothschilds lost the American Revolution, they blamed the Russian Tsar and the Russians for assisting the colonists by blockading British ships. They swore eternal revenge on the American colonists, just as they had when the Russians and their allies crushed Khazaria in AD 1000. The Rothschild KM attempts to retake America in 1812 on behalf of the Khazarian Mafia, but fails, once again because of Russian interference. This failure enraged the Rothschild KM, and they once again plot eternal revenge against both the Russians and the American colonists, and plan to infiltrate and hijack both nations, and asset strip, tyrannize, and then mass murder both nations and their populace. Continuing on, we've been at this for a while. The Rothschilds and their English oligarchy that surrounded them plot ways to retake America, and this became their main obsession. Their favorite plan is to set up an American central bank featuring Babylonian money magic, usury, illegal taxation, aka theft, and secret counterfeiting.
Although geographically separate, the city-states of London, the Vatican, and the District of Columbia are one interlocking empire called Empire of the City. The flag of Washington's District of Columbia has 3 red stars, one for each city-state in the 3-city empire. This corporate empire of 3 city-states controls the world economically through London's inner city, militarily through the District of Columbia, and spiritually through the Vatican. The Constitution for the District of Columbia operates under a tyrannical Roman law known as Lex Fori, which bears no resemblance to the U.S. Constitution. When Congress passed the Act of 1871, it created a separate corporate government for the District of Columbia. This treasonous act allowed the District of Columbia to operate as a corporation outside the original Constitution of the United States and outside of the best interests of American citizens.
It's crazy.
A sobering study of the signed treaties and charters between Britain and the United States exposes a shocking truth. The United States has always been, and still is, a British Crown colony. King James I was famous not for just changing the Bible into the King James Version, but for signing the First Charter of Virginia in 1606. That charter granted America's British forefathers a license to settle and colonize America. The charter also guaranteed that future kings and queens of England would have sovereign authority over all the citizens and colonized land in America stolen from the Indians. After America declared its independence from Great Britain, the Treaty of 1783 was signed. That treaty specifically identifies the King of England as the Prince of the United States and contradicts the belief that America won the War of Independence. Although King George III of England gave up most of his claims over his American colonies, he kept his right to continue receiving payment for his business venture of colonizing America. If America had really won the War of Independence, they would never have agreed to pay debts and reparations to the King of England. When Congress passed the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the U.S. President was made subservient to the King of England. The 13th Amendment is called the Title of Nobility Amendment and forbids U.S. presidents and their officials from using royal titles like king or prince or baron. For some mysterious reason, the 13th Amendment, which was ratified in 1810, no longer appears on current copies of the Constitution. America's blood-soaked War of Independence against the British bankrupted America and turned its citizens into permanent debt slaves of the king. In the War of 1812, the British torched and burned to the ground the White House and all U.S. government buildings and destroyed ratification records of the U.S. Constitution. 1 century later, a corrupt U.S. Congress committed the biggest theft in world history. They passed Paul Warburg's Federal Reserve Act in 1913.
Quick comment. What kind of series or documentary or something is that? It seems to be very old, but it seems to be quite telling, you know? You're saying something, definitely. I wonder if it was on the TV or something. Interesting.
Handing over America's gold and silver reserves and total control of America's economy to the Rothschild banksters.
In 1913, the Rothschild KM was able to establish a beachhead by bribing crooked, treasonous members of Congress to pass the illegal, unconstitutional Federal Reserve Act on Christmas Eve without a required quorum. The act was then signed by crooked, bought-off President Woodrow Wilson, number 28, who was a traitor to America, like the members of Congress who voted for it. And look, I found pictures of Woodrow Wilson. Look at the handshake. Look at the handshake. That's a Masonic handshake. That's not a normal handshake. Look, he's giving the guy practically his wrist. These are Masonic handshakes. He's a bought man. Wilson was a bought
Masons.
Man. The KM put an illegal, unconstitutional tax system in place in order to make sure that Americans would have to pay for their high-level USG spending, approved by a bought-off, crooked Congress and presidential puppets put into place by corrupt KM campaign finance. It's easy for the KM to garner enough money to elect anyone they want, because when you control a bank that is a secret major counterfeiter, you have all the money made for you that you desire. Absolute corruption corrupts. Absolutely. Doesn't it, though? Just look at Rome.
Sure.
Most Americans still believe that the Fed, or Federal Reserve, is the government. It is not. The Fed is a privately owned banking system whose majority Class A shareholders are the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Kuhn and Loeb, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, Israel Seif, and the Lehman Brothers. This private banking cartel is the Fed and is never audited and never pays taxes. They print and design America's money, which displays their symbols of an Egyptian pyramid, a Masonic all-seeing eye, and the words "In God We Trust."
At about the same time that they created their illegal usury tax system in America, they also bribed members of Congress to approve the Internal Revenue Service, 1862, which is their private collection agency incorporated in Puerto Rico. And I'm going to show you something here with this little chart. Soon afterwards, they set up the Federal Bureau of Investigation to protect their banksters, to serve their cover-up needs and prevent them from ever being prosecuted for their child sacrifice rituals or pedophile networks, and to also serve as a covert intelligence operation on their behalf. So what we have Babylonian money magic. Here we have the collection agency is established, 1862. Got to pay for the war. Got to pay for the war, folks. Got to pay for the war. And if we don't pay for the war, those Brits, they're going to come and get you. They're going to come and get you. Right? Do you see a theme happening?
Boy,
then
Chuck.
They established the Department of Justice. Yes, in 1908, Bonaparte establishes the FBI. Bonaparte was bought.
It's the money magic. It's the money magic.
Bought off, just like Napoleon was bought off. And this is going to be the enforcement agency that will guard their crimes that they make with the United States Federal Reserve System. So the FBI was not set up to protect you and to bring about justice. It's a criminal justice system. It is justice for the criminals. So the Department of Justice was established to guard the crimes of the KM within the system, within the government. It had nothing to do with guarding you and helping you and protecting you. Nothing. Nothing. In fact, These agencies note that the FBI, BATF, that's Tobacco and Firearms, IRS, and others have no official charter according to the Library of Congress, and so have no right to exist or issue paychecks.
That's interesting.
You're under control. You're being used and pushed around. It is not about your betterment. It is not about your having a nicer, more protected, better life. It is about covering over their crimes and continuing with their crimes to hunt you. That's what it's about.
Most U.S. citizens believe that the United States is a country and that the president is the most powerful man on earth. The United States is not a country. It is a corporation, and the president is president of the corporation of the United States. He and his elected officials work for the corporation, not for the American people.
There's the same thing basically going on in Germany, you know, that people call it the German. In German we call it like this called GmbH, like GmbH, which you just put behind a company basically. So then you know it's a company, you know. So because it's BRD, like Bundesrepublik, GmbH, GmbH. It's a funny thing because that thing exists. So people say it's also just company. Also, when you get your ID card, it's like a card that you get, like a persona card of a company, you know, which you have to always get new every year. I think, I don't know. Is it every 5? I don't know if it's 5, but quite often in Germany, man. Which is it's a thing. You have to renew that thing quite many times and pay money for it. So, you know. Are you an employee? I don't know.
Since the United States is a corporation, who owns the corporation of the United States? Like Canada and Australia, whose leaders are prime ministers of the Queen, and whose land is called Crown Land, the United States is just another crown colony. Crown colonies are controlled by the empire of 3 city-states. At the center of each city-state is a towering, phallic-shaped stone monument called an obelisk that points skyward. In D.C. city-state, the obelisk, known as the Washington Monument, was dedicated to Freemason George Washington by the Freemason Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. The secretive Brotherhood of Freemasons laid the Washington obelisk's cornerstone in 1848 and contributed 22 Masonic memorial stones. 250 Masonic lodges financed the Washington Monument obelisk, including the Knights Templar Masonic Order. At the heart of London city-state is a 187-ton, 69-foot-tall Egyptian obelisk called Cleopatra's Needle. It was transported from Egypt and erected on the banks of the
Cleopatra's Needle. I don't want to see your needle. Noodle.
River Thames. In Vatican City, another Egyptian obelisk towers high above St. Peter's Square.
The Rothschild KM deployed the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia to extract incredibly savage, bloody revenge on innocent Russians, which they had plotted for many years. Ever since Khazaria was destroyed, they pre-staged and engineered the Russian Revolution by using its central banks to pay for the Bolshevik infiltration of Russia and the revolution on behalf of the KM. The Bolsheviks were actually created and deployed by the KM as the essential part of their long-planned revenge on the Russian Tsar and the innocent Russian people for breaking up Khazaria in about AD 1000 for its repeated robbery, murder, and identity theft of travelers from countries surrounding Khazaria. The Bolsheviks are what were used to move in and terrorize the Russians, and the Bolsheviks eventually became the Nazis. This is all the work of the KM. This little-known fact explains the extreme violence taken out on Russia as long-standing revenge by the Rothschild-controlled KM. Remember, they hated Russia for invading their country, and they took out revenge during this. And I've got a
crazy.
In a well-planned, savage, and inhumane bloodletting that stunned the world, the Bolsheviks were unleashed in full fury on behalf of the KM to gain revenge on the Russians. This had been planned since the destruction of Khazaria 1,000 years before. The Bolsheviks, at the direction of the Rothschild KM, raped, tortured, and mass murdered approximately 100 million Russians, including women, children, and infants. Some of the torture and bloodletting was so extreme, we are not going to mention it here in this article, but readers who want to know can do some in-depth internet research on the Red Terror or the Bolshevik Cheka, or watch the classic movie, The Chekist, which is available on YouTube. I watched it as well as I gathered information, and this is what I found out. This is bad. Get your kids out of the room and get your kids out of the earshot. The Red Terror took place during Russian Revolution in 1917 and to 1923. Felix Dzerzhinsky, I think, of the secret police enforced it. Oddly, check this out. He initiated a vast orphanage program during his leadership. What do orphanages do? They collect children. What does the KM Mafia eat? Children. Why was the Roman Catholic Church invented? As a collection agency. For who? For the Khazarian Mafia. It had nothing to do with the betterment of people. It had nothing to do with protecting the children. You've been preyed on. A massive police state was created which operated outside the law and which could arrest seemingly anyone at any time who was judged a class enemy. Looking suspicious, being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and being denounced by jealous rivals could all lead to imprisonment. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? What they did, what the Bolsheviks did, is what the Germans did, is now what the American government is doing. And all the governments worldwide, they're all doing it. Throwing you out. If you don't go along with the COVID narrative, if you don't go along with the climate change narrative, if you don't go along with their narratives, you're out. You're out. You shouldn't even be alive.
That's a point, bro. There are people wishing you death when you don't comply with one of those things. Talking from personal experience, man. Which is crazy. But yeah, man, if you make that realization at some point. Yeah, man, big time. Big time.
And it's the same threat that the Catholic Church gave to people. If you don't believe in this system, you're out. You die forever. You burn forever. You must subscribe to this stuff. And if you don't, you're out.
Dude, for a second I thought he's just like, you must subscribe to this channel. Dude. For real, I thought he's going to do that, but he didn't. I did though, so go for it, man.
You're in prison forever, meaning you're burned forever. It's the same fear techniques. It's the same activity happening. Imprisonment meant torture. Torture methods included pulling nails and fingers off with pliers, twisting, breaking, and pulling apart arms and legs, broken glass enemas, candles left to slowly burn underneath genitals, frying on a giant red-hot pan, boiling families alive. That happened. That's real. That is what Satanists, people who worship Baal, who worship Baphomet, this is what they do. They have no empathy. They have no heart chakra. They are working with the animal chakras, which are the bottom three. They are concerned with their own power and projection, their own genetic, their own life. This is what consumes them. And this is what they pursue. Just like animals.
I feel like this is so hard to grasp, bro. Because it's... if you have a heart, that's the thing. You're like, what? Like, you know, I know there are killers in this world. There are people that kill, you know, but this is on a whole nother level. On a whole nother level. And very hard to really take as a truth, I feel like. Like, it needs time to sink in, man.
That's why Baphomet is half animal, half human. It's not fully human. It doesn't have a heart. After World War II was finished, the Rothschilds came and deployed the Cold War. And here we go. And used this as an excuse to bring Nazi scientists and mind control experts to America under Operation Paperclip. We're going to look at that in one sec. This allowed them to set up a worldwide spying and espionage system, here we are again with their spy system, that far exceeded any of their prior efforts. Under this new system, they continued to infiltrate and hijack all American institutions, including the various American church systems, Freemasonry, especially the Scottish Rite and York Rite, which you now know from video 1 require pedophilia to become a part of, the U.S. military, U.S. intel, most private defense contractors, the judiciary, and most agencies of the USG, including most state governments, and both major political parties. This was Operation Paperclip. They literally, the U.S. government, literally brought in Nazi scientists who were doing trials and experiments on human subjects and human studies to then lead NASA, CIA, MK Ultra program, mind control. The experts from Nazi that ran the propagandist material, namely Werner von Braun, was put at the top.
Go watch my Epstein time travel video if you want to know about Werner von Braun, my boy, one of the founders of NASA. Interesting guy.
Position at NASA.
At NASA.
Why would you put a top propagandist, a trained propagandist, who's a Nazi, in charge of NASA?
I don't know.
Why would you do that?
You tell me.
It's not because he has an amazing ability with a telescope. No, it's because he knows how to control mass populations of people. You simply throw the magic, the scientific magic coming out of NASA in front of the people, and they are spellbound, and they just believe whatever you tell them. So you can do things like fake a moon landing, and nobody ever knows it. Nobody ever knows you never were there, because you have a propagandist who is leading the effort. This all goes back to mind control, propaganda, and forcing their will upon the people. That's what this goes back to. Our system is bought. Look at these guys. Look at these politicians. This is artwork that was in Jeffrey Epstein's house on that island. That is mockery, folks. Look at these two paintings. The left, that's pure mockery. People died in those events, and they're making fun of it. And then you see here, this is a horrible statement to women. In this painting on the right here, with Clinton in the same blue dress that his semen was found on. This is mockery. This is mockery. They love, one thing you can always know, these people love to mock you and lie to your face. Just watch a press conference coming out of government.
Oh my
they
God.
laugh and enjoy mocking and lying to everyone at those conferences. You can see them at the press conferences that they hold.
Mm-hmm.
The Rothschild KM decides to mind control the American masses to make it much easier to manipulate them into approving their illegal, unconstitutional, unprovoked, undeclared, unwinnable perpetual wars needed to make huge profits and gain more world power, also known as the military-industrial complex, the MIC. They decided to gain complete control over all public education by setting up the Department of Education and creating globalists and socialist curriculums based on political correctness, diversity, and perversion as normal teachings. Now, folks, before we get into that, notice they did the same thing to the medical system. Remember when I showed you
my boy spitting, bro.
The video that showed Rothschild took over all of the educational institutions for the medicine systems and rewrote all the medicine books and put his petroleum-based petrochemicals as the chemicals used in medicine to heal people? Remember that?
Sure.
What do you think they've done recently with the Department of Education in the last couple of decades with teaching our young ones about their gender? About all of these sexually oriented concerns. Have you noticed that the curriculum is a little bit different now than it was when you were a kid?
I haven't looked into it, but
they have
probably.
Normalizing perversion examples.
No, I did see quite a lot of things going on in this direction. Quite bad stuff, man.
I'm going to give you some examples here. Pedophilia is a sexual orientation, not a crime. Okay? Adult intercourse with a child is okay if it's consensual. Genital mutilation of children is now gender affirmation. So the same child that can't choose whether or not they're going to drink alcohol and can't drive a car can choose a permanent gender mutilation for the rest of their life. Do you see a problem there? These are all examples of normalizing perversions in human psychology. It gets worse. Check this out. Sin is a perversion of harm. Religion is a perversion of God. Hive mind is a perversion of society. Human sacrifice is a perversion of death. Do you see how they use perversions to twist the mind of society? To twist their will into society so that society willingly goes along with it? What do you see happening with the kids? Those at the top are the KM, and they control all the books, all the media, all the education that goes into the society. And if you don't know that, you will believe that education and you will go along with it. And you will think, yes, it's perfectly fine for that child to choose what their gender is, but it's not okay for that same child to choose if they want to drink alcohol and to choose whether or not they want to drive a car. But they can permanently disfigure their body. Fluoride is added to public water and toothpaste, and dentists are mind controlled to believe that fluoride prevents cavities and is not harmful to the brain function or thyroid function. It systematically destroys. That's what they do in medicine with chemo. The addition of fluoride to the public water supply and to toothpaste is to dumb down Americans by lowering the operational IQ and making
My boy Chuck is just bringing in the metal song again, bro. Just slowly fading in. Dun, dun, dun. I'm sorry. It's a little bit distracting, but I noticed fluoride in toothpaste. The old legend.
Folks much more docile than they would normally be. Because, and I write this, because a self-aware, self-determined, self-empowered individual is impossible to control. What did I just say? If a person is not ignorant, if they're wise to you, you can't control them. If they're wise to your ploys, if they're wise to your lies, if you're wise to their cons, if you're wise to their Hegelian dialectic, to their dialogue, if you're wise to it, you can't deceive them. You can't deceive them. Because it's already in you. It is in you. The light of God, the light of nature, the light of love, the light of compassion is in you. You see? And so fluoride and these systems that they have in place are to dumb you down so that you're not self-empowered, so that you will not look inwardly to find the answers. You will look externally. You will look outside yourself to find the answers, which will never give you the answers because you can't find the answers outside yourself. They can only be found within. Programs to develop and deploy vaccinations are to dumb down children and create huge numbers of future chronic health problems. Food allergies, behavioral spectrum disorders, autoimmune diseases, lowered IQ. That's in your food. That's in your medicine. That's in your education. These things dumb you down, give you chronic health problems because you participate in them. And when you participate in the lies, you get sick. And therefore you're controlled. And I'm not shaming that at all. I'm saying that's what they want. That's what they want you to be like. They want you inept, paralyzed, prostrate on your face. That's what they want, because then you're obedient. I wrote an essay on that. I'll release it here one of these days. Part of this massive plan to dumb down and mind control the American masses was the KM's buying up and consolidating all the American mass media into 6 controlled major mass medias, CMMM, owned and controlled by their cutouts on their behalf. Again, here we see again, get a few cutouts at the top, control the rest of the masses on the bottom. The CMMM functions as an illegal news cartel, and it should be broken up under antitrust laws and for inflicting espionage and illegal propaganda as a weapon of war against the American people. Something to notice here in this graph. In 1983, 90% of American media was owned by 50 companies. Diversity is key. You want diversity in a society. You don't want a glass house or a echo chamber society. You don't want that. You want diversity. See, so American media was owned by 50 companies. In 2011, that same 90% is controlled by 6 companies. What's the program? Corrupt a few at the top, control the rest of the masses. What do you see here in our media? Our media is completely owned by nothing but Khazarian Mafia companies who have no interest in your betterment. Finishing up now, in an interview, The Short End of the Stick, March 10, 2015, on YouTube, between Mike Harris and Gordon Duff. Here's the address if you want to go to it and see it. It was disclosed from a written transcript of a meeting with Bibi Netanyahu in 1990 that Netanyahu was a KGB spy like Jonathan Pollard. Benjamin Netanyahu, Khazarian Mafia head of state, said.
My boy Chuck is just throwing in the link, but in a painful way, so you cannot copy it. You have to write it down, man. Ah, that's such a pain. But thank you for the link, Chuck. Appreciate ya. I hope my camera's not dying because the battery is super low for some reason.
And I quote, "If we get caught, they will just replace us with persons of the same cloth. So it doesn't matter what you do. America is a golden calf, and we will suck it dry, chop it up, and sell it off piece by piece until there's nothing left but the world's biggest welfare state that we will create and control." Notice the hexagrams behind Netanyahu. Remember what we know now about the six-pointed star? It represents 666. It represents Satan. That's who this guy is the face of. He's in the club. Look what he said. Why? Because it's God's balls will, and America is big enough to take the hit so we can do it again and again and again. This is what we do to countries that we hate. We destroy them very slowly and make them suffer for refusing to be our slaves. What do you see happening right now in the world? Suffering very slowly. They're slowly destroying the world. Do you see it happening? Do you see it happening? And look at the words. This is what we do to countries that we hate. We are the goy to them. To the Khazarian Mafia, we are the goyim, the meat animals that are to be controlled, manipulated, and used as slaves. They're their slaves. That's what they believe. And so the point, and we'll finish out here, and so the point of all this is so that you know who the enemy is, because finding that is going to do wonders for your understanding the world that you're living in. And with lectures like this, you will better understand not only who is running the world, but how you're controlled. And by knowing how you're controlled, you can cut off that control. You can defeat that control. Self-empower yourself to be free. Love you guys. See you later. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Oh my God. Chuck, I love you, bro. I love you. Thank you. Seriously. What a great lesson. Great video. Ooh, there was a lot of information, guys. Same thing like last time. I need some time to digest all of that. And I think I don't need to add much because you joined me. So you probably did hear everything I heard. And you cannot deny it. It, at least, you know? You don't have to fully buy it. Just saying. I would put it that way. Not that you don't have to buy it, you know? It's not like there wouldn't be no reason for me to not believe into that. It's just, as I said, hard to really grasp, you know? And to really say, yeah, that's it, you know? But I would have nothing against that hypothesis. Even though you might say it's not even a hypothesis. Oh my God, hypothesis? Hypothesis? Oh my goodness, English. Sometimes so hard, bro, I swear. But yeah, man. Oh boy. We're living in an evil, but also very beautiful world. I'm sorry. Beautiful world. That's what I wanted to say. So you better be part of one of the creators to try create a world that might not follow those principles, but maybe more principles that are based on love, you know? So that's what I am for here, or what I am here for. So if you want to join me, man, join me. And let's do it together, because together we can do it, guys. We can do it. So I'm gonna end the stream here. I thank you so much for your time, man. I'm very, very overwhelmed that I got so many views. So, because I did not expect that. So I'm very, very thankful. As I said, leave comments below if you have ideas what you want to see next time. I'm open for everything, man. Let's, you know, throw it in. I'll take a look. So I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you have a good day, good time with your loved ones, man. And I'm going to see you in the next stream, guys. So I'm out of here. Till then, guys.